Well, ChatGPT has taken another dump yet again. It's very unreliable comparatively to other websites. It's just sitting there failing over and over and over again, and it's been doing this for the last hour and a half. So, this, of course, means that I have to generate a topic of my own doing, which is often not a good thing because I've become terrible at generating my own content since I started dependently depending wholeheartedly on AI to do everything from thumbnails to scripts. Everything on the channel is AI generated, and it's just been way more successful than the channel has ever been. If it took me 18 years to get a penny out of YouTube, and then I was monetized within a week after restarting my channel, obviously AI is working for a lot of people, and it's not for the people that you might think. Also, with all the comments, I'm sorry about using that introduction from that guy that I did this morning. I'm not even going to mention his name, but the guy that I put in the first segment of my last video, that person will never come up on my channel again because everything you guys are accusing him of, well, it's probably true and I don't care. I don't like big YouTubers myself because a lot of them are sketchy people. I mean, we all heard about what happened with Mr. Beast, and it's only a matter of time before every channel has some sort of scandal like that. But with that said, let's get into my variety of different talking points that I came up with. So, I think there comes a day where we all get fed up with the people around us. There are those people you can get rid of, and then there are those you're stuck with. The people that we don't want to be around have a tendency to stick around the longest. And sometimes you can just block them or they'll just take a hint. This is something that I've never understood about people. In fact, this last girl that I had to get rid of last night, she's had restraining orders put on her because she didn't understand that it was over. You can't just stop talking to a person for 2 months and then suddenly decide, oh, well, you know what? I just want to let myself come over and we'll fix it. No. When someone has to get a restraining order against you to get rid of you from their life, it is it is beyond. I don't know how to put it. The cops are here in my apartment complex all of the time because of men that don't get it, of men that won't go away. So you call the cops, and he's definitely lurking around. And just like this girl that I told you guys about, she was screaming and yelling at his house, and the cops came and they took her away, screaming and yelling into the car, into the police car. I mean, if you're not going to die of embarrassment at that point, I don't know what to say. Like, you have to take a hint at some point. If a person isn't replying to your messages, chances are they're never going to reply to your messages. And I'm guilty as hell of this. I mean, there have been people, especially when I was going to school, where, you really enjoy them, but the feeling isn't mutual. And so the second they don't respond to your second message, it's kind of implied that they don't want anything to do with you. It may have been something you said, something you did, some even a feeling that they got that they don't want you messaging them again. And so I've done this, I've had this happen now with several people. People who haven't texted messaged me in 3 weeks, people who haven't text messaged me in 2 months. Or the person that just text messaged me 12 hours ago, which I had to say stop. When you have to tell a person stop, that means that I don't know. And so the people that we're stuck with. So there are two groups of people that you can't get rid of in your life. You can distance yourself as much as you want from them, but unfortunately, there's no way out of unless of extremes, right? Family members are the number one category that we don't like, and unfortunately, God gave us these blessings regardless of how we felt about them. So we all have that racist uncle, right? Who you have to see at Thanksgiving and Christmas. No one ever talks to him. This guy said obscene things during the Obama years, and he just progressively got worse. He's wearing his MAGA hat while he tells you about how great it's going to be and how the 4 years previous to the past were the greatest times in America. And you kind of just roll your eyes at racist grandpa and you think, you know what, at least he doesn't have very many years in them. You look at all the politicians that we have that should have been retired 30 years ago and they just won't go away. Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I'm even tired of AOC. None of these politicians on the we're gonna do the left. They haven't done anything. For years, they've talked about, oh, how unfair the world is. We had the whole Black Lives Matter and nothing changed. Just a bunch of people got hurt for protesting something that wasn't going to change. I would like to see a movement where the proletariat matters, or at least that human beings matter. But the reality is that if you're not rich, you're invisible. That's it. The other version of people that we can't get rid of unless you quit your job, and then you might find even worse ones, is coworkers. Sometimes your coworkers are the most obnoxious people you've ever met, or sometimes they don't realize how terrible their psychological problems are. They just come to work, and then you just kind of like look at them like, okay, maybe if I ignore this person long enough, they will be a figment of my imagination and I will never have to deal with them again. Sadly, some people don't realize or don't care that they're working for a terrible corporation. Somehow, and I've noticed this throughout my years, they convince themselves that it's not that bad. Let me assure you, Johnny Sixpack and Susie Rotten Crotch, your job is that bad. I was just talking to the cashier at Kroger's a few minutes ago that doesn't smile, and I looked at her and I said, "You never have to smile while I'm here." And she just looked at me like, "Thank you." And I'm like, sometimes jobs are horrible. I even said it to her. I've had to stand there for years of my life working a retail job that I absolutely couldn't stand, surrounded by people that didn't have two brain cells to push together. Unfortunately, when they hire people to work in retail, they don't look at you and ask where your PhD in nuclear physics is. As long as you can somewhat breathe and chew gum, they will hire you to work in retail. Why? Because most people won't apply for a retail job unless they're absolutely desperate. Desperation jobs make the world go round, and they are very hard to do. As a desperation worker, currently, I've been bouncing around from one desperation job to another for more than 20 years. Have I ever enjoyed the workplace one time in my entire adult life? Absolutely not. You're not supposed to like your coworkers. You're not supposed to like your boss. You're not supposed to like your job. You just have to go because you need money and you don't want to be living in the street and sleeping on the sidewalk. That's the only reason we go back to work. Nothing about work is appealing to the average person. No educated person wants to end up like me, a complete loser, sitting here spouting off insanity with rambles every single day in the park because he doesn't have anything to do. Why do you guys think I go to the park every day? Because of the wonderful weather? No, I go there because I have nothing else to do. I can either sit here in my dank apartment with roaches crawling on my arm, and that is not an exaggeration, or I can go to the park and get out of this roach hotel for a couple of hours. That's the only reason I leave this place. If I was comfortable at home and I had everything I needed here, do you think I would ever leave? The answer is simple. Most of us are uncomfortable everywhere we go. We wake up in the morning and we're uncomfortable. We look at what we have to eat because we can't afford better, and it's an individual serving of ramen. And then you go to a place that you definitely don't like, which is your evil corp job. You get to lunchtime, and guess what? That little box of ramen is waiting for you yet again. You get off from your job at Evil Corp. Your rear end is very, very sore because Fleece wasn't kind to you today. And you get home, you swat away the pests, and then you touch your rear end and you think to yourself, do I really have to eat this again? And the answer is absolutely 100% yes. Proles can't afford to eat anymore. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but everything about prole life has become more obnoxious and more locked in. And it's not like, and this is something I tell people all the time. I don't like my life, so I'm just going to move over here. And then you move over there, and it's like, wait a minute, it's still the same life. It's still the same cast of generic characters and NPCs, except you just move 2 feet over. That's not going to save you from the horrible life of not having money. In fact, while I was at the gym this morning, I was scrolling through my phone because I was bored between sets, right? And I saw this article. Gen Z thinks that $600,000 a year is about the salary that they need. So somehow Gen Z came up with not only 500,000 in one of the last articles that I heard, but $600,000 a year is kind of like where they'd like to be able to live their best life and have work life balance, be able to travel several months out of the year, and be able to buy the car they want, buy the home that they want, and still have free time to do whatever they want while they work a 3 day schedule at work while only working 5 hours a week. Now, you tell me, that's the life. I mean, if I were going to say, you know what, we need to shift over to something else because this isn't working for me, the sub $20 an hour job just isn't quite giving me the lavish lifestyle that I would prefer to have. This isn't working for me, so I'm firing my job and I'm firing everyone around me, and I'm going to go my own way and collect my $600,000 for part time work. Well, wouldn't we all like that lifestyle? But it's not the one that's offered to us. My next talking point is either way, this world's a prison for all things we don't like doing. And everything we really want, a big house, a bunch of half naked chicks in bathing suits, and tons of the stuff that make us feel good. Wink, wink, the things I can't say on YouTube or else I'll get demonetized. This is what we wish we had. It's what we see on the internet. It's what we see in the movies. But the harsh reality is I'm sitting here in a room with no furniture in the dark, and it is very cold outside, and I have absolutely nothing to do for the next 6 hours other than try to destroy my brain in order to not accept my reality. Well, moving on to my next talking point. The stuff isn't meant for your grubby hands. Everything shiny, new, gold, chrome, anything that you want isn't meant for your tiny little hands to be touching. You're meant to work till the day that you can't. And when you're no longer useful to society, you're going to be put into the back of a truck, very similar to the way that in Animal Farm, boxers taken away. Once he gets injured, they put him in the back of the glue truck, and you're going to the Pine Box retirement community because that's where proles who can't work go. There isn't going to be 20 years of retirement for the average person that works paycheck to paycheck. I say this in all of my videos, but I want to reiterate the point that life is a bunch of suffering, and then you go out in a blaze of glory, I'm hoping. Not just dying of a stroke in the parking lot while you're pushing shopping carts at the Kroger at age 80. Every time I see that little old man, I think to myself, that is the future of America. That man probably has no family, never married, doesn't have any kids, doesn't have any savings. He never lived a single day in his entire life. As a person that's never lived a single day in my entire adult life, remember, I've never been on vacation, I've never been on an airplane, and I've never had enough money to rub 2 cents together to be able to buy anything I've ever actually wanted to buy. We get the basics. You get a little food, you get a little transportation, and you get a little housing. And that is supposed to keep you satisfied for the rest of your life. Well, I'm not satisfied, and I want to return this ticket. And the number one thing I want to return in my life is my piece of crap education. That's the first thing that I want to give back. I want to walk over to the university's return customer service department and tell them, please take this back. If you have to drill it out of my head with the screwdriver in order to take my education back, do it. Because it's not working for me. And it's making me more miserable being an educated, poor piece of crap human being than otherwise I would be. Because I meet people all the time that all they need is a good Marvel movie and a beer and the illusion that Susie Rottencrotch in that beer commercial wants to get it on with you. That's all they need to be happy. I don't. All this damn education inside of my head has made me the most miserable human being that I can imagine. Because you acknowledge the fact that things like the Communist Manifesto ensured long ago that you were never going to have anything. You were you would own nothing and be happy. Well, guess what? I own nothing and I'm not happy about it. I don't like being part of the proletariat. I, I want to be part of the rich people. And sometimes people come into my chat when I'm live streaming and they ask me, Millennial Steam, how can I get rich today? And I think to myself about that commercial, it's my money and I want it now. Now, now, now. And you think, well, there's no money coming. There's no lottery ticket to a better life. It's just this, the misery and pain of being part of the proletariat. All right, moving on to my second to last talking point. What are we supposed to do in the meantime? I thought about this while I walked on the treadmill this afternoon. What am I supposed to do if I don't like any aspect of the current poor person life? Well, guess what? You can't wish yourself out of poverty. You can't wish yourself out of the lower middle class. I've said this 1,000 times on this channel. There's only supposed to be two classes of people in this world: rich and then the working poor. The working poor don't like being the working poor. The only the best way to get yourself into a lot of trouble is provoking a poor person while they're at work. Because you can see on their face. When I looked at that cute blonde cashier's face today when I was at Kroger's, the only thing I could see was disdain in her eyes for being forced to work a job that she was way too attractive to be doing. And she knew it. For some reason, her looks weren't enough to keep her out of working at Kroger's. They should have been. I mean, that girl should be dancing at a club right now, having money thrown at her. But instead, she probably doesn't have very good self esteem, which comes along with being part of the proletariat and working a minimum wage job. Is your self esteem sinks into the toilet, or you never really develop any self esteem. I've never had self esteem in my life. And you kind of just almost feel there are certain days where you deserve the punishment of being poor because you weren't fortunate enough to be born rich or win the lottery or find a pot of gold or do anything that would have kept you from having to come back to your retail job. Instead, you have to look like an idiot in that uniform with your little name tag, and you have to say phony things to the customers all day long, like, have a great night, smile, and you're kind of like, ugh. To me, the smile is the worst part about dealing with people in customer service. Because I've been there and I've been told things while I worked at the call center. You know they can see that you're not smiling, Millennial Stam. You need to smile while you take those phone calls. And I'm like, I can't smile anymore or else I'm going to rupture myself. And the manager's like, if you can't smile more, then we're going to have to find someone else to fill this position because it's a requirement of the job. Just like your goofy uniform and your ridiculous hat, you need to do this. And you have to muster up the strength right before your rear end puckers up and you're kind of like, you're making the noises of a person that's trying to go number two after spending 10 days thinking about it and unable to do it. That's what smiling in retail feels like. Or any job, even my current job. My boss walks in and it's like, well, don't you look miserable? How would you like to do the same thing over and over again for 3 years nonstop? How would you feel about that? I'm sure you would feel a little constipated as well. All right, my final talking point. I don't like poor people. They don't like me, but you just can't walk up to a rich person and tell them to adopt you, right? I mean, that's not an option, right? I can't just walk up to the next rich person I meet and be like, hey, it's Millennial Steam here. I'm sick and tired of living in this neighborhood. Will you adopt me so I can come live in your neighborhood? Even if I only have 1 to 2 years, it would be a lot better to be a rich person's pet rather than being society's punching bag for the rest of my life. I often think about that when I look at celebrity dogs. That dog is going to live his best life. Not because of anything he did, but circumstances. I would like those circumstances too. So, any rich people right now that are watching this, Millennials Team is available for adoption right now. Please come get him, lift him out of his disgusting, miserable life, lift him out of the unwashed masses, clean the mud off of his face, give him some clothes worth wearing, put some shoes on his feet because most of the time he's sitting in the park shoeless because he's broke as hell. Please, rich people, adopt me even if I can only be around for a year or two.